City Matters.
Hello, and thank you for joining me today. I'm your host, Rich Acritelli, and on today's episode of The Fog of War and Humanity, here on hmTV, my special guest is Janet Santeramo, will join me for a conversation about her time in the Marine Corps, her moments as a lawyer, and as a Maine veterans advocate here on Long Island. Janet, let's get started. Here we go. Where did you grow up as a kid, and what were your interests?
I grew up in Ridgewood, Queens. I was a pretty good student. When I was younger, I was in the gifted classes, which they used to have then. And as I got older, I eventually wound up at Queens Vocational High School. And believe it or not, got my cosmetology license of all things, right? And after high school, I wound up moving to Hilton Head Island. And I worked there for a while in a restaurant.
Okay. Now going back to your time in the city,
Sure.
what were things that you liked to do in Ridgewood there?
Well, when we were kids back then, we used to play handball. We used to do things like that. It was great. We'd go to the park. You could
Some
walk
good
around and
Italian
do
food,
things.
right?
Of course.
Yeah.
And my grandparents were a very big part of our lives growing up. Myself and my brother. My grandfather would take us to the park when we were little, put us on the swings. And, you know, when he passed away, we'd still go to the park
Sure.
and do stuff like that.
And when you look back, like at your education in New York City, what are the things that you see? Because like you went to vocational school, so you have probably a lot of the better teachers in the city, right? In terms of teaching you as well.
I don't know if they were I didn't
Yeah.
really know anything else. So for me, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Some kids, when they go to high school, they know exactly what they want to do and they get on that track. I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I did go to parochial school for a very short period of time. Parochial school didn't sit well with me.
Sure.
It wasn't the right track for me. So that's how I ended up going to a vocational school, which I enjoyed. I had a best friend that I met up with again in high school that I had since kindergarten. So that was great.
Okay.
But my mom was a single mom. You know, she worked. So
Not always easy, right?
no. Oh, no, not at all. I look back now at my age and I don't know how my mom did it. But my grandparents were a very strong influence in mine and my brother's life.
Okay. And then you end up going to Hilton Head. Now, why do you go down there?
My dad was a business owner there.
Okay.
So I lived with my dad for a while, and I don't know, I just didn't feel like my life was going in the right direction. You know, drunk and stupid is no way to go through life.
Sure,
So
yeah.
I
Animal
thought-
House, right?
Yeah, I mean, I thought to myself, this is going to end up going nowhere. And I just got up one morning.
What year was that about, you would say?
89.
89, okay.
Yep. I just got up one morning and I didn't think about which recruiter's office I was going to go into. I just kind of made a beeline for the Marine Corps. So I was very fortunate. I had a really good recruiter. And he didn't let me go open MOS. You know, there's a danger in going open MOS because you may end up doing something you really don't want to do. And it was kind of interesting because he had asked me, you know, what do you like to do? Do you like to work outside? Do you like to work in an office? What do you like to do? And then based on my ASVAB score, I had a choice between like 5 different fields. And he said, well, he said, they just opened up the MOS of 1316, which is a basic metal worker, to women. You know, do you think you'd like to do that? And I said, sure. You know, I couldn't be doing any worse than I was already doing. So I was slated actually as a combat engineer, but that didn't come out till a little later down the line. I went to Parris Island to go to boot camp. That was the only place.
How was that when you sign up in Hilton Head? You're practically around the corner from Parris Island. You're not far from there.
Oh no,
right?
I was a short little bus ride, and I think I was drinking like a crazy person the day before I shipped. It was a short bus ride.
Sure.
And then you get there and the screaming starts. You're standing on the yellow footprints and it's just chaotic. And if you're somewhat hungover, it's not going to sit well for you. Just a lot of screaming, a lot of chaos. And,
You know who's in boss at that time there.
For sure.
Yeah.
You're still trying to...
It doesn't take long, right?
No, you know right away.
Get off my bus, get
off my bus, yellow footprints, and then it takes off from there.
And everything you're doing is wrong, You're not standing the correct way, right?
Even if you were doing it right, you were doing it wrong.
Yeah.
And, going through boot camp, even in October, the big joke is the sand fleas, And I remember you couldn't sweat the sand fleas because if you did, the drill instructor was like, why are you killing my pets?
Yeah, sure.
Or, you're either going to leave here. The best line I think I ever got was, Santeramo, you're going to either leave here very strong or very smart. I'm
sure they love that dominant Italian name in the middle of the South there,
and then I don't care. You could move down south. You never lose the New York accent. And my senior drill instructor was Georgia, all the way, Southern drawl, the whole nine. And, they were calling me hmTv. What weren't they calling me? Hey, New York, knock it off. It was
They probably thought you were going to be the best rifle shot, right? Because you were from the city and this and that.
I think, they knew I was hard-headed, obviously. And, I wound up standing at Port Arms, which it seemed like I was there for an eternity, but that was my punishment. Are you eyeballing me, hmTv? I got tortured somewhat. But it didn't really, I guess, because I was a little bit older than some of them, because I didn't go in at 18. And, I already somewhat had an interesting life. So they really didn't shake me. I just would tell myself, you just got to get through this to get to the next level. Yep. Just keep going. And when I finally got out of boot camp, I would say I was in the best shape I was ever in. I think if I weighed 120 pounds, it was a lot. I mean, I was like
you're always moving. You're always moving.
I mean, what are we having for chow? Duck in, duck out. It was just
eat now, taste later. Right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. Nothing changed.
When you hear of younger kids going into service, or they're coming back from boot camp, one thing about the military, there's changes, but the core always stays the same, right? To a degree, right?
I would say the Marine Corps has stayed pretty consistent.
But I'm saying the core of training in terms of all the armed forces stays the same, get there on time and take care of your stuff and work well with others.
Because you have no choice.
Yeah, you have no other choice. And they're breaking you down and they're building you up the way they want to see you.
Well,
right?
yeah, and it's funny because when I talk to other Marines once they get out of boot camp, they're hate that boot camp was horrible, boot camp was it. I'm like, listen, you don't think, and that comes in handy when you end up deploying. It comes in really handy because you don't have time to think about stuff. You just do, like a machine, and. Some people don't like the way...
You had drill sergeants or instructors there, right? That, they were there in the middle of the Cold War. They were there, you might have had some officers or old NCOs that were Vietnam,
Yeah,
some of those guys are lifers, and they've been around.
And a very interesting way of looking at things, because sometimes... you see things, and at first it's a little disturbing, but then you think about it and you're like, I know why they're doing this to me. It was a matter of the light bulb going on, which I wish it would, for more people. I remember, musical racks, dragging the footlockers up and down the stairs like crazy people for no reason, or them coming in. God forbid you have an unlocked footlocker. I mean, wow, everybody.
Because everyone's a thief. Right?
Yeah, everybody's a thief, and if they caught you taking anything from the chow hall, oh my gosh, I remember somebody had taken something from the chow hall. I think it was like sugar packet, something silly, and we all got punished for that. It was like, all right, ladies, quarter deck.
Yeah.
We're going to make it rain in here. And believe me, you would sweat. It was,
From all the push-ups and all the
push-ups,
calisthenics.
side straddle hops. I mean, mountain climbers, and that was it, and we were sweating by the time we got done with that.
What did that teach you? Keep an eye on each other and
keep an eye on each other.
Make better choices.
Make better choices. Don't steal. They really teach you.
Yeah, because you're stealing from my mess hall. That's what it is, right?
Exactly.
Right?
You're stealing from my mess hall, and they really want you to be the best you can be. I mean, I think boot camp has changed a little bit in the Marine Corps, but not that much. The pillars of leadership remain, I think, consistent and the same. But when I went to boot camp, there was no mixing of males and females, none whatsoever.
When I went 5 years after you, 6 years, I went 94, in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, on that base for that AIT class I was in, that was the first time men and women slept in the same barracks. And those guys were like, they still kept it segregated off in terms of gender with floor. But you couldn't be heading in that direction. You couldn't be on that floor. If you needed something from up there, you had to go right to the instructor, and they meant business. They'd have you rolling up hills if you were,
We didn't even, if there was a male platoon coming into the chow hall and you couldn't make eye contact with them, either their drill instructor would tell them about face, or our drill instructor would make us we didn't want to, we looked like Ewoks anyway. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, it was, you didn't even want to look in a mirror. You look so bad, you were really looking kind of rough. But at the end, the payoff was great.
Sure.
We were the first group to graduate in our dress blues. That was never done. So
good feeling, right?
Oh my gosh, a great feeling, because for me, it was like, okay, I'm getting to graduate in my dress blues, which hasn't been done before, and I'm getting into an MOS that women have never been accepted in before. So that was two firsts for me.
You were really at a crossroads too, because you go in 89? You got things that we never thought that we would see in terms of people dancing on the Berlin Wall and that part of the Eastern Bloc coming down. It was always us against them, That's why I'm always surprised about what Cuba is still intact. I think in our lifetime we'll see the end of that. But you were at a crossroads where the mission was kind of starting to change a little bit, and President George H.W. Bush, he didn't say much, and he got criticism for not saying much, not almost like spiking the ball or taking a, I don't know, like some sort of joyous. He goes, the Soviets are still tough. They're still, a potent enemy. I don't want to kick them while they're down. So you were in the service at that crossroads. When I went in a couple of years later, the Cold War was already over. It was like a different mission, if you want to call it that. But,
well, I think it still continues to evolve and change, because there's always somebody somewhere doing something. And there are things that we need to be very conscious of.
So when you saw the end of the Cold War come, right?
Right.
What did some of your senior officers or NCOs, were they kind of dumbfounded, or were they just telling you got to stay sharp still,
Well, I think, I was very fortunate because I went to school to be and it was strange all the way around because I get to Courthouse Bay, which is right across the street, basically from Camp Lejeune, and that's where the welders went to school, combat engineers, all those. And I think it was strange for the people that were in a long time, a lot of the senior officers, and even senior NCOs. My top was, I guess, they're looking up and down the ranks. Now, there were only, I want to say, 4 of us in the welding class, 4 women, period. And I remembered we got there and, we're all in ranks and they're looking up and down the ranks and they're going, what doesn't belong here? You know what I mean? Because they were...
And they made it known, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure they made it known.
And I was never one that was very, what's the word? I think I always had a bit of a tough skin, whereas other people might have been a little offended.
Did the city help you out with that a little bit?
I think so.
You gave it a little bit, but you had to take it back a little bit too, right?
Well, it's just, it took a lot to really offend me, I guess. And they're looking, and they're like, well, they can't be combat engineers. And I was like, no, no, Staff Sergeant, I'm slated to be a 13, 16. And then they had us go over here and everybody else went over here. But
did that make it stronger? In your mind, I'm going to show these guys that they are wrong, that I can do this.
Well,
was there a little bit of a chip on your shoulder, like, hey, I'm capable?
I don't know if it was a chip on my shoulder. I really did it. I went over to Mainside. That was my first duty station. I went over to 8th Engineers Support Battalion, and I went over to the welding shop. And I remember my staff sergeant. He was the nicest guy, and his wife was also a Marine, but she worked in admin. And poor guy wound up with 3 of us coming over. And he was very diplomatic about it. He said to us, well, would any of you, would you feel more comfortable in the office? And 2 of them said, yeah, I want to go in the office. I don't want to do this. And I just said, Staff Sergeant, would it make you more comfortable if I went in the office? I wasn't nasty. I just said, just treat me like a Marine. That's all I want you to do. I'm not asking for anything special. Just teach me what you would teach any, private. And we seemed to get along. But, did I have to work harder? Yeah. I had to probably go to the gym. I was in the gym probably 4 days out of the week, in addition to PTing with the platoon, because I didn't want to have to ask the male Marines to lift my tanks off the truck. So I did have to work harder.
How long was the training for?
Boot camp?
No, when you did your MOS, yeah.
About 3 months.
3 months? Okay.
3 months, yeah.
Now, you get done, you graduate from there.
Yep.
Was your family at your boot camp graduation and then your MOS graduation? Did they come down? And
my parents were divorced, but they both came down for my graduation. They didn't quite, I don't think, understand what was happening. My dad never served in the military. He was an only child. So, and my mom didn't, but my grandfather was in the Navy. I think he was on the tin can. I don't even know how old he'd be now, but that's what kind of...
So he gave you some smile and sense of pride and...
Yeah. I mean, he passed before I decided to go in the Marine Corps.
And I'm sure he probably said, you got to be proud of her. She went through a lot here. This is, a lot of training and a lot of discipline. And
it's hard for people that don't understand it. My dad was initially very upset that I decided, he couldn't understand why. He's like, listen, there are so many other things that you could do. Why would you even consider going into the Marine Corps? It's not really a place for you. But I think in the end, before my dad passed, he did say to me, I'm proud of you. You made me, I look at women a lot differently now than I ever did, because you've done what you did.
Sure. And
So
it's good for your family, and it's a good thing. It's a very good thing. Years later, you look back and you look at some major achievements at a very early age. Right?
yeah, I don't think,
And it's on your own.
oh yeah,
That's the thing.
But you know, I've never been one to what's the word? Showboat. You know what I mean? I'm just not that kind of person. I usually like to kind of work in the background and do what I can. And that seems to work best for me.
And you're always positive and work well with others, right? And goal orientated.
Oh, yeah.
And probably a lot of that comes out of the Marines as well. Let's get this done. Let's do this. Let's do that. And
oh yeah. Listen, when I first got out of the Marine Corps, I thought about reenlisting, and I wound up after I went off my active duty contract. I signed a 4x4, and then I started working over with the I&I staff over in Garden City. And I can honestly say the Marines I met that I worked with on active duty and the I&I staff, what a great bunch of people.
Sure.
I feel so privileged and honored to have worked with them.
now you leave your MOS, you graduate. Where do you go after that?
Well, I was with 8th Engineers Support Battalion for most of my tour duty.
And that's what, at Lejeune?
Yeah. And I went over to the Gulf with 8th Engineers. So, you know, we went there slightly after Thanksgiving, a few days after Thanksgiving. We were on our way over there. So I was over there for about 6 months and change.
So when Saddam attacks Kuwait and he takes over Kuwait, Bush comes out, we're not going to allow this aggression, right? Mm-hmm. Slowly but surely, it was like 300,000 American soldiers go over there, along with Marine armed forces, right?
Yep.
Because you're not a soldier, you're a Marine, right?
Right. Well,
right?
Yeah.
So now, did you realize that the deployment was coming? Did they basically tell you you're in a key position here that's going to be needed? Or was it kind of wait and see?
It was kind of like we're on alert, and it's like, get on your gear, and we all just sat there. You know, there wasn't a lot of talk about us going over there. We just knew we were going somewhere. You know, and I'm told to be here. I'm told to have my gear. I got all my stuff together and doing the sea bag drag. You know,
was there more of a sense of urgency when somebody told you to do something? And not saying that you didn't do this before, but like that military discipline must have been.
Oh yeah, I could tell you if somebody told me to do something before, it wasn't getting done. After being in the Marine Corps, but after boot camp, if they told me to do something, I was on it.
In terms of, you know, this is the big deployment now, going over to the Gulf. At that point, you must have been like, you know, eyes are straight forward, and you know, it must have been in your back of your mind, I could be going here.
I didn't really give it much thought, you know, to a certain extent, maybe and looking back now, maybe I was a little clear-headed about it, you know. They said, okay, this is it. No matter where they would have told me to go, I would have been okay with it. It didn't matter, you know. I was with my platoon, so as far as I was concerned, they could be sending me to Guam.
Now, how old were you? 19, 20 years old?
I was, let's see, I turned 21 in the Marine Corps, so I was probably about 19 or 20 at the time.
Do you think it's easier when you're younger or when you're older in situations like that?
I think the fact that I was just a tad older and had seen what I seen prior to going in, I think you just kind of, I don't want to use the word resign yourself to certain things, but you think about things differently. So whatever thought I had in my head, I'm like, listen, I signed up for this. This is where I'm going, and that's it.
So now, do you remember where you were when you were given the orders that you're shipping out?
I was still at Lejeune, and they just said, okay, that's it. Everybody in the barracks pretty much cleared out. We all had to go to the same place. We're all pretty much shipping out at the same time. There was a wave that went out a little bit earlier than us, but it wasn't as big of a wave as we were, of course.
Did they like establish like some of the routes over there for you guys in terms of getting, you know, established with all your equipment and gear and like where you were going to be?
We
that sort of
weren't
thing?
really privy to that until we landed. Because we were engineers, we had water supply with us, we had all of that.
Wow.
So wherever they told us to go, they didn't tell us in advance. It was just like, okay, get on the cattle car, that's it. And once we were there, we were there. So we were by the water port for a while. We were in...
Where did you fly into?
We went through, I remember going through Brussels, and somebody said, that's the last time you're going to see grass for a while, you know? But...
So you went from Brussels, and then when you went to Saudi Arabia, did you go into Riyadh, or where did you fly into?
We went into, let's see, we were in Kabrit, Mashab, Jabal maybe. We didn't know. We were just kind of, for me, it was like the middle of nowhere. And we all just kind of, they said, okay, you're going here, you're going there. And I was with quite a few reservists, plus, excuse me, another WM was with me. I forgot what her MOS was, but we were lucky because we were engineers. So we had things that other people didn't have.
Sure.
We at least get a shower once a week if we needed it, which we probably needed it.
Nice luxury to have. Right?
Yes, it was. And we were able to dig holes in the ground that you could fit like a two-man hooch in. So it kind of worked out okay. But when you were trying to get out of there, there's the rub, because I had to basically back up and really get a good run to get out of that hole, because there weren't stairs.
We're going to come back here on hmTV, the Fog of War and Humanity, with Janet, and we're going to talk to her about her time in Saudi Arabia during the first Gulf War and her experiences after her time in uniform as well. Please join us back.